Refuge and a home of peace. Many who need a place to go where they are free. Disagree and we may argue, hey, but we have never been at war. In spite of all that we have been through, we are still one Zambia, one nation under God.
My Zambia, my identity, this is who I am, it's who you are. My Zambia, my identity, this is who I am, it's who you are. God has blessed us for a reason. Yeah, all we have is not for show. No, we must never take for granted all this peace we know. It's all by the grace of God. Yeah, take a look at other places. Oh, all they know is fighting, war and destruction. In spite of all that we are going through, we are still one Zambia, one nation under God. My Zambia, my identity, this is who I am.
This is who I am.
It's who you are.
It's who you are. My Zambia. My identity. Oh, sing it, sing it, sing it, sing it, sing it, sing it. Wishibane. Wishibane. Oh, listen. Beautiful. My Zambia. That song is sung by Israel and his wife Nalu. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but my wife and I just heard that song early this morning. And it's one of those songs that you hear for the first time and you instantly fall in love. My Zambia, my identity. Beautiful. Israel Nalu, thank you for that beautiful song. And I think it should be an anthem throughout this campaign period. That is what we should have first and foremost on our minds. The nation comes first. The country comes first. Everything else pales into utter insignificance in comparison to the whole nation. Remember, folks, and I keep saying this, I've said this a multiplicity of multitudinous tens of times. After this election, when the dust settles and when the dew dries, there is a life to live and there is an existence to be had. In case there's some of you that think that your lives are hinged on this election. Trust me, this election will come and go. We will still be here, at least we should be here. We should still be here. Get it out of your minds. Remove it from your cerebellum. Extract it from your spirit. If you, for one moment, think that this election is the be-all and end-all, it's not. It's not the first one, and it certainly will not be the last. So keep that in mind. There's a nation to be had, an existence to be lived. Thank you, Nalu and Israel. Beautiful song. Thank you so much. Before I go into my little talk today, as is my custom, I'd like to throw up a few shout-outs up in here. Somebody's watching us from Auckland, New Zealand. Now, Guys, you must know this is not Oakland. This is not Oakland like Oakland, California. No, this is Auckland. That's how they say it, Auckland, over there in New Zealand. Brian, what are you doing in New Zealand? I don't even know any Zambians in New Zealand. Thank you, Brian, for joining us. Dorothy Perry says, beautiful and emotional song. It sure is. It sure is. I tell you, something. And by the way, if there are any of you that are bundle depleted, because I know some SML viewers are bundle depleted, and that's not a bad thing. All of us go through this because there are a few of you, you have maybe 300 MB on your phone, and then you're going to take it out on me. You're going to start to say, Mr. Mwewa, please, can you just get to the point? Please. Yeah? Just start talking, you, Mr. Mwewa. Don't do away with those pleasantries. Eh? Even my bandos yasira. If that's you, let me encourage you now, and I mean this from my heart. You can catch this broadcast on the replay, honey. Okay? You're not the only one that's had bundle problems. Bundle problems are experienced by everybody. So please don't rain on my parade. I love shout outs. And if I'm going to spend 3 minutes shouting out, could you let me do that in peace? Could you let me just shout out in peace without you jumping on here talking about, Mr. Mwewa, you need to hurry up. Eh? You're wasting our time, please, na papata. You can catch the broadcast on the replay, okay? I'm going to do my shout-outs, okay? Somebody is watching us. You're not going to believe this. I'm going to show it to you. I'm going to tell it to you, but you will not believe it. Somebody's watching us from Thailand. Would you believe it? Thailand. Amazing. Who is this? How do you say this? How do you say this name? Watching you from Thailand, Mr. Mwewa. Philip Chimvula. Amazing. Thank you, Philip. Thank you. How's I've been to Thailand several times. Takuntap. Is that how you say that? Takuntap. You know, the Thai people love to do this when they say thank you. Takuntap. Yeah. Have you ever been to what do they call that? Phuket. Philip, have you been to Phuket? Well, we've been to Bangkok, Thailand, several times, and I love it out there. You know, one of the most amazing things about Thailand, and for those of you that have been to Thailand, you will agree with me that the first thing that hits you when you get to Thailand and you walk out of the plane and that Thai humidity hits you is that Thailand has a very distinct, I don't want to use the word smell because smell denotes negativity. It's got its own atmosphere and it's very distinct. I mean, it hits you like a brick when you walk out of the plane, you know. Yeah, but we love it. We love Thailand, loved the street food, loved everything about the Thai people. Some of them were sweetest people in the world. And what touched me and us when we went is just how much they loved their king. Of course, their king has since passed. We last went to Thailand several years ago, and back then the king was alive. He's passed on now. Tell me, Philip, who's in charge now over there? Is that the king's son or the king's daughter? Tell me in the comments below, Philip. We want to know. Goodness. Thank you, Philip. Bless your heart. Bless you. Bless you. Bless you. Bless you. Now, you see there? Now, this is a typical Zambian. I'm telling you right now. This is the quintessential Zambian right here. Okay, if you ever look up the word Zambian in the dictionary, you're going to see this name right here. Listen to this comment. Petition. To get to the point, Mr. Mwewa. Please, Mr. Mwewa, just get to the point. I mean, bandos yazasila. I don't even know how to respond to this. All right, let's get to the point. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for joining me for a few moments. I'm only going to be with you for a few minutes, 15 minutes tops, or last, as we say here in LSK. As many of you know, the renowned photographer Chellah Tukuta was taken to court by Honorable Dora Chellah. The former minister sued Chellah Tukuta because Chellah uttered some things that were very uncomfortable and things that Honorable Dora Chellah deemed as untrue. She said those things that Chellah Tukuta uttered on Facebook were falsities. And so she took him to task. She took him to court. And it was back and forth, and we witnessed this over several months. When it came time for Chellah Tukuta to testify, more, I tell you what, that's a mouthful right there. When it came time for Chellah Tukuta to testify, how many T's were in there? Goodness. Chellah Tukuta decided to remain mute, or moot, as some people say. He decided not to speak. He was advised by counsel not to speak. Now, I asked our lawyer, we have a lawyer, Mr. Kangombe. I asked him, I said, when that happens, when an accused person decides or chooses or opts to remain silent when they are called to the stand, what is the rationale behind that? And my lawyer said, well, sometimes counsel advises you to remain silent because they feel that at some point while you give your testimony, you could further incriminate yourself, or you could say something that would solidify the prosecution's case against you. So sometimes counsel says when you get up there, you keep your big mouth shut. Don't say a word. And that's exactly what Chellah Tukuta chose to do. He didn't speak. Well, several weeks after that, or several months, whatever it was, Judgment Day came. And the whole nation, well, not the whole nation, lots of people on social media, with bated breath, we waited for the judgment. I knew what the judgment was, just like many of you. I've been saying it, and I've been saying it for months prior to the case going to court. I've always maintained that Chellah Tukuta would end up in prison because of his utterances. See, I have to quote this. When someone takes you to task, when someone decides to apply the law to what you have uttered on Facebook, especially now in this new dispensation that we're in, it's not what you know, it's what you can prove, honey. Forget what you know, because there's some of you that sit there, and me, I know. I even saw it with my own eyes. They were there. Yeah, but can you prove it? It's not what you know, it's what you can prove. Chellah Tukuta failed to prove his position in court. When Honorable Dora Chellah took him to court for defamation, and I'm not going to go through what he said. I mean, that's water under the bridge. It doesn't make any sense for me to sit here and start to talk about in great detail what he said. You all know what he said. Some of the most vile, some of the most putrid, some of the most repugnant, some of the most damnable, some of the most detrimental comments you've ever heard on social media. There was Chellah Tukuta speaking and spewing this stuff on the mountaintop with no shame. And he did it with self-righteous indignation. And so many of you would hoard his page, and you'd sit there and, with your popcorn and say, Chita reveal. You same people that were egging him on, you know the word egging? You were encouraging him to say, to do, to spew, to delineate, to enunciate, to reveal all of these things that you thought were so juicily gossipy. But when it came time for Chellah to face the music, when the gauntlet came down and the guillotine chopped his head, none of you were there for him. You, the same people that told him, tell us everything, leave nothing out. The same people that were saying that when Chellah Tukuta's judgment came down, the most many of you could do was, oh, okay. Oh, okay. See how social media works? Not everything glitters is gold, honey. I mean, here it is. You've got a whole slew of people that cheer and shout your name. But when it really matters, you're standing left in the cold, and all you have are broken pieces in your hand and wondering where your posse is. You know what a posse is? Do you know what that is? A posse? A posse is a gang, a group. You're wondering where your posse is, where your group is, where my people at? And you're standing there alone. You're standing in the solitude of yourself. And that's where Chellah Tukuta is. Now, let me get to the bottom of why I'm talking to you today. In my view, and I've always maintained this, Chellah Tukuta broke the law. He broke the law. And when he did that, they sent him to prison, to jail. Now, they gave him 2 years, and a third of that might be commuted. I mean, 1/3 of that, sorry, not a third, 1/3 of that, he might receive a commuted sentence. You know, they might reduce the sentence by a couple of months. He might have to serve a year and a few months, 6 or 7 months. That's if he's not granted bail, pending, I guess, retrial or whatever it is. And let's be honest, it's possible if his lawyers argue the fine points of the law, the judge could give him bail. But then again, the judge may not give him bail. You know, so it's a 50-50. You know, nothing is cast in stone. Now, I was a little disappointed when I heard Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, whom I have a tremendous amount of respect for, as I do many of these politicians. A man in my position, that's all you can do, is look at politicians and appreciate them for who they are. I'm not a politician, okay? And I'm certainly not a partisan politician. I'm just here to give you my 2 cents worth. So anyway, by Hichilema, I heard him on the radio. I forget which radio station he was on. Tell me in the comments below which radio station. It seemed to me that it was a call-in program. Mr. Hichilema was audibly upset. He was furious. Please tell me in the comments below if any of you know which radio station he was on. It was Hot FM. That's right. There you go. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It was Hot FM. He was on that radio show. And Mr. Hichilema was audibly upset. Now, when he kept on saying that, you know, Chellah Tukuta, from what I recall, correct me if I'm wrong, I may not get the quote right verbatim, verbatim means word for word. But the gist of what he was saying was basically, naturally, Mr. Hichilema was defending Chellah and saying things like he's a freedom fighter. He's a freedom fighter. We're going to, and so on. Now, here's my take. Leaders of political parties are held to a higher standard. I want you to get that. Let that sink in for a moment. Let me say it again because I think that's important. Leaders of political parties are held to a higher standard. In other words, what you say as a leader matters more than what an average person would say. So when a leader insinuates or implies that a certain person who has clearly broken the law implies that that person is above board and we're going to get him out and this was all unjust, and that, in my view, is inaccurate. We all agree Chellah Tukuta broke the law. And I told you the other day, and I'll say it again, I am not a fan of Edith Nawakwi. I've met Miss Nawakwi many times over the years, over the last 25 years. I've met her in different scenarios, different venue. The first time I met Edith Nawakwi was at Parliament. I was a young man. She was a young lady over there in Parliament, and we sat at the same table. I had gone to Parliament to listen to the debates because I love listening to parliamentary debates. So this one year, this was about 25 years ago, might have been 30 years ago, I forget. But I'd gone there, and she was she might have been a young member of Parliament back then. I'm not sure if she had a ministerial position. I forget. But we were sitting, you know how Parliament has a break. They do this thing where they debate, and then I think they have a tea break or a lunch break or something. We were, during that break, Edith Nawakwi and I sat at the same table. It's the first time I'd met her. And, we made small talk, pleasantries, just talking, just, asking her about her experience in the house. And she was very nice. I mean, she was very pleasant, very cordial person. That was the first time I'd met Edith Nawakwi. But over the years, I've met her many times, many different places. I'll never forget the first time I'd gone, I'm not sure why I'd gone to see her, but it had to do with politics. And I'll never forget, she was living at a house near Kabalonga there. I'm not revealing any secrets. This is, it happened. There's no secret about this. And she was living in a house in the Kabalonga area. I'd gone to see her, and then I was telling her, I said, I'm sort of thinking about joining politics. And I'll never forget her response. Maybe I shouldn't share that, but I'll never forget her response. She said, "Oh, I don't know about that. You may want to rethink that. It's a huge sacrifice. If you choose to go into politics, it's a huge sacrifice. You can kiss your life goodbye," she said, pretty much. And again, I met her many, many times after that. But here in the recent past, I haven't become a fan of Edith Nawakwi because of some of the things she said. Now, my point is this: even though I'm not a huge fan of her, I never liked what Chellah Tukuta said about her, and in the manner that he said it. Are you getting that? I never did like that. I found it disrespectful. I found it distasteful. All those things that when Chellah Tukuta would turn on his Facebook page and hundreds of you thousands of you really, would flood his page, and you would sit there listening to this young man address this lady who has served in government and talk about her like she's some type of two-bit street girl, to put it lightly. I didn't like that. Well, I didn't like it because, I happen to believe that it's possible to disagree without being profanely disagreeable. I understand the annoyance of the UPND. I understand that. I understand that the UPND were annoyed that Edith Nwakwi came up with this fabricated story that Mr. Hakainde Hichilema somehow illegally obtained land, when really, at the end of it, all of us know that was a transaction, willing buyer, willing seller. But Miss Nwakwi turned it into something that it wasn't. None of us liked that. But none of us have the right to disrespect a woman in that way. I'm of the belief it's possible to disagree without using profanity. Some of you, Charlie mikanga mwadi filwa mpaka fye mwatukana. Mpaka mwatukana bwana mwatukana mwalanda mwamwebe ichirifi. Eri omutima waikara yokwena na chimutuka. Some of you, that's how you are. And I never did like that. And so my advice to Mr. Hichilema is don't defend Chellah. Don't. What I would prefer that you say is Chellah Tukuta made a mistake. He erred, or he erred, as the British say. The Americans say erred. He was wrong. The judgment was sound, it was correct, it was intact, it was right. Mr. Hichilema should have said, Chellah Tukuta, we are law-abiding citizens, and we do not agree with anyone that breaks the law. And so from this point moving forward, our position, this is what Mr. Hichilema should have said, in my view, our position is we're going to see how this goes, but none of us condones what Chellah Tukuta said. It was disrespectful, it was distasteful, it was wrong. Boom. Man, do you know how great that would have been? That's my advice. And lastly, let me say, keep an open mind. It's the only way new things can get in. Open your mind to that. Okay? Thanks, guys. I've got an interview with someone from Slovenia in a few minutes. So God bless. That was my 2 cents worth. That's what I wanted to tell you. God bless. Bye.